Oh,
Yeah, for some reason my OBS does not want to pick up desktop audio, and I can't figure out why.
angry
Can
men.
you hear can you hear more than just me at this point? Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna do some snaps so that I can find that this is where the show actually starts without going through the audio. Okay. Um, Hello and welcome to NoCB, a grand strategy podcast. This is for the week of the 24th of February, 2021. I am your host, Liana, and we have our incredible panel here, including Rose, including Lambert,
Hello there.
and including Father Loris.
What's up? Hello.
And we have our special guest this week, I think for the second time on NoCB. We have Arheo from the Imperator Rome team.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Didn't hear Rose?
No.
For
Right.
everybody listening to the podcast later, this should be fine, but we have a lot of
Can you hear
audio
me
issues.
now? Can you hear me now?
We can hear everyone except Rose.
There,
How
it
is
was,
that?
it was set to a microphone that doesn't exist. So
Yeah,
Okay.
that can happen. Anyway, well, we have a little bit of a Dev Diary news to talk about, and then the back half of the show this week will be talking more about Imperator 2.0 and its development. So if you have questions and stuff like that, that will be the time to throw them our way. But we'll begin today with a Dev Diary that left me feeling a little bit cold. Which is they're bringing more weather effects to Crusader Kings 3. This looks very similar to what was implemented with CK2 when they did the big weather update for that. Forget what patch that was.
who knows? There were many patches for CK2. It all runs together now.
My brain is a little bit scrambled this week because I said I made the mistake of saying in Discord when we were like making sure everybody was set to go today that there probably wouldn't be any issues, and then like my mic stand broke like an hour before we're supposed to record. So if I sound like I'm underwater, it's because I'm using a desktop mount for my mic, which means I'm gonna have to run like heavy noise reduction so that you don't hear all my like computer fans and stuff. Yeah, and then I couldn't get OBS to work, so yeah, my brain is not in an organized place right now. Father Loris, why don't you take a look at this first screenshot, though?
Yeah, I know. It's in a wonderful world. Wonderful part of the world.
Tibet leading the Dev Diary this week.
I know, as every Dev Diary should. Start with Tibet and work from there.
It is a really fun area to play in CK3. If
Yeah,
you
it
know,
is. Yeah.
you haven't tried it, yeah. Now
one of the favorite things I've got about CK3 is the atmosphere. Like in Tibet, anyway. There's the lovely sound effects that happen in the background, the sort of jingling bells of little Tibetan prayer wheels going around and all that.
Well, and it just pointed out that Tibet's culture unit, the Mountaineers, will be one of the best units, if not the best unit, to be fighting in wintertime in the mountains.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'd still take a hefty unit of Palatini over them, but that's just me loving the Romans.
+5 damage in harsh winter just makes it sound like they're White Walkers or something. That's
this is the most exciting thing about me for this Dev Diary is not the gameplay stuff really. It's the cool little soundscapes again, right? I mean, like it's mentioned later on in the Dev Diary. I don't know if we're gonna go in chronological order, but I'm so excited about these minor tweaks to audio. I didn't really want to talk about them.
As you do.
Ah, man, it's so good. Like things quieten down in winter, like cattle goes in the barns, and things started to ease down and sleepy in the winter times.
I also just like seeing snow on the map. Like, I just like the idea that the map visually changes with the seasons. It kind of gives you a sense of the passage of time, makes it feel more like a real place.
And it's much better than a day-night cycle, considering that changes so fast it hurts your eyes quite often and your brain.
Yeah. The Hearts of Iron 4 Speed 5 strobe light, you're not a fan of that?
No, that's the first thing I turn off whenever I open or have had to reinstall and open Hoi 4.
Yeah.
Oof.
If you're playing at like a really, really slow speed and like microwing tanks around, it can be cool, but yeah, most of the time.
Nah, pass on that one.
Leave that turned off.
We do have a very important question from Johan for Father Loris. Which game does Tibet look best in?
Oh, it's tough. I would say CK3 Imperator is a close second. I could do a tier list.
I would disagree with you. I think Imperator's got the best looking map.
I still do think Imperator has the best looking map, but Imperator also doesn't have all of Tibet yet. It only has the southern part of Tibet.
Which, of course,
it's got the important
minus.
bit. It's got the mountains, which is what you need if you're mountaineers, you know. I don't. Yeah, it's nice. I like Imperator's map.
It's what you want out of it, you know. It's like, I think CK Freeze map. It's got that lovely thematic style. You know, it's got the zoom out thing where you get to see it. Like,
the paper map I do love.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
But then Imperator's curvature thing, it's wonderful still. I think that's probably.
Do we consider China part of Tibet?
I'm not gonna answer that question.
Yeah.
The opposite way around is the controversial bit.
Yeah, the other way around, I think hardly anyone does.
I mean, I don't think anyone would consider China to be part of Tibet. No.
Clearly, all of China is Tibet. Beijing is a Tibetan monastery.
Putting in with about the weather effects, though, I did I did a video on YouTube about the Dev Diary, like I do, but someone commented that they hope that we can turn the weather effects off for slower machines because their computer's already a potato and they want it to still run CK3.
I'm not sure how much just like changing terrain textures would actually affect performance.
Shows
particles.
The snowstorms.
Oh, there are?
Yeah, the particles.
There
would
are
be a bit
particles. You're right.
iffy.
I would imagine you could probably turn those off.
Bottom out. Please.
Arheo is here.
I am.
He's here.
We're just talking Imperator after the other ones.
He just doesn't work on Crusader Kings, so I don't think he has a whole lot to add to this.
I could always pretend to answer questions, but I don't think the team would thank me very much.
Yeah. So what's the first DLC gonna be? That's what I constantly.
Dating simulator.
I mean, it's already one of those, though, isn't it?
You've got me there. Yeah.
No, just put the the Sims dating expansion. Just add that to CK3.
Hot Date,
Sims
the original
medieval.
Sims dating.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Well, you know, we need eco lifestyle. Needs to be added.
You've completely lost me because I've played like one Sims game. I have no idea what you're on about.
Imperator has eco lifestyle. You just have to keep your centralization at -100.
I was really disappointed about expansion.
Or what about a paranormal stuff pack? That would do really well in CK.
He would.
I mean,
actually.
that was called Monks and Mystics.
Yeah, we've had this. I do want it again, though.
Yeah.
They also are cutting up the baronies, or some of the baronies, in Ireland and Italy because it just didn't make sense.
The thing that I love, though, is that they've given Ireland a bunch of new baronies and stuff, but Athlone is still in the wrong place. Because Athlone is where I went to college, and the town itself is literally where that lake is, at the top of, the bit where it meets Mayo and Umain and Briefny. Like that's where the town is. I went to college there.
Oh,
It's in the wrong place.
like the capital part is in the wrong place, or the whole county is in the wrong?
Oh, the
place?
county's fine. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
the capital of it is There's the lake.
That is an issue in several parts of the CK3 map, where the actual like castle or city is not actually physically located in the part of the county it should be in. Yeah, I don't think that's something that they have gone through and painstakingly placed those correctly. Because yeah, there's a couple places where I've noticed that. Also, they broke up Thomond into two counties, or Thomond. I'm gonna get mad Irish people that I can't pronounce
Sorry,
Irish.
they're Irish. They are mad as a
They
general
always
character
mad.
trait. Yeah.
But Desmond is still just a big chonker. They didn't do anything to break up Desmond.
They should have broken Desmond up into Desmond and maybe Cork. Also, I do find it funny that they're calling, the second county in Thomond is now called Ennis, because that's the name of the island. It's right off the coast. Ennis is an island.
Ennis actually means island, right?
No, here's Ennis.
I think Ennis.
It's this town.
Oh, there's
right
another
here.
Ennis there. Fair enough. I'll take it back. There is an Ennis Island. I think it's that one. I don't know. I guess I'm wrong.
We've got.
Because the Innis Mon was the old name for Anglesey. Yeah.
Oh, those are the Aran Islands. Isn't that where they did
the
Star
Wars.
Ted? I don't know.
Is it? No, I don't know.
I don't know. Let's go take a look here. What do we got?
I did it
one
around
of-
Dingle.
One of those was the Star Wars one. Yeah, I don't.
That's something to look at.
Yeah.
Nice, lovely brick wall. You could defend that from some barbarians. Although if you live there, you probably are the barbarians. So.
Wow.
Yeah, they've also done some similar work in Italy. It looks like mostly the very north and very south of Italy. They've added some new counties and new. I can't keep track what they're actually calling everything across
Baronies.
all of these games. Yeah, I
Baronies.
guess baronies. Yeah. Should just start calling everything a territory. Just standardize that vocabulary.
That can be the lowest breakdown again.
Yeah.
And we do have to say that the comments of people responding to this were much more positive than last week's Dev Diary.
Settlement. That's what they call them in CK3. They call them settlements, I think.
Although not in this Dev Diary. They've taken to calling settlements just baronies now. So
Yeah,
even the dev team can't keep the story straight on what is the lowest breakdown of area.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like these kinds of map updates. You love to see it. I'll be happy to see this sort of touching up happen across the map over many patches, as I'm sure it will, because PDS designers really like tweaking the map.
One thing that I do hope they change in Crusader Kings map is the look of the floodplain terrain that you get in the Nile Delta and all along the Nile and in Mesopotamia. Because I don't know if it's just me, but I think it looks absolutely disgustingly ugly, and it takes away from. I don't want to play in those regions because the map looks awful. I don't know. I don't like it. It needs changing.
I'd have to take another look at that. Yeah. There are some terrain types in CK3 that seem a little like they should be toned down a little bit. So I kind of see what you mean there. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't have a transition, but we also got an EU4 dev.
He wants to reform the Nile, so let's talk about some EU4 reforms.
Yeah. So we got a little peek at another feature that's coming in Leviathan for people who like to play tall, such as myself. This is probably a feature I'll be using a lot, particularly the second part of it. But you can now consolidate development, which basically pillages one of your outlying areas and moves a bunch of that development to your capital. But more importantly, you can actually do that as a war goal where you can pillage someone else's capital and take a bunch of their development home with you without having to take on more provinces. And that's the part I'm really excited about.
Yes, yeah.
Like, I don't like development at all as an actual mechanic. But if we're gonna have to keep development, ways to impact it and grow your own territory without clicking a button, because just clicking a button's kind of boring. This seems like a pretty decent way to do it.
I think our version of like how they say next year in Jerusalem, ours is with pops in EU5.
Yeah.
Isn't like stealing development here? You're essentially like back in Imperator stealing slaves.
I think it's more like you're doing a bit of a Dandolo, you know, and you're stealing stuff from Constantinople.
Yeah, I mean, you could. You could
same
see
sort
it as
of
that
game
you're-
mechanic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think you could interpret this as you're taking a bunch of slaves. I think you could maybe interpret it as you're, I don't know, hauling off some infrastructure. I don't know. We're bringing bridges back on a cart or something like that.
We'll tear your bridge down brick by brick and rebuild it in Australia.
Well, because development in EU4 is like this weird abstraction of like, it's almost like combining population and civilization level. If we were thinking about Imperator, like it's because it's not just how many people you have; it's also like
Infrastructure.
like it's also like an infrastructure thing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll if I play my
That's
opium Hamburg run again, I'll love to just be able to like pillage Berlin and bring all their development back and.
Or with
Remain a free city.
Leviathan also coming with a lot of reworks to the North Americans, maybe this time it's the North Americans that are going to be taking Europe's wealth and bringing it to the New World.
That's always a fun one.
That would be a fun challenge. I want
Oh.
to see you do a series on that, Lambert.
Yeah, for this that's a very good point actually, because you know you can do this in vassals, can't you? Consolidate development. Can you do it to colonial vassals?
So instead, my new plan, scrap that one, is I'm
Yeah.
going to do a standard playthrough as Britain and take all of the development from
From
America
yeah.
and bring it home.
So
You're not supposed to
I'm suddenly a
recreate
lot more
history. You're
interested in
supposed
this.
to, do something ahistorical here, Lambert.
You do trade companies and stuff. I'm suddenly a lot more interested in this.
Look,
I think,
I'm going to Athens. I'm going to Athens. We're gonna get Athenian development. It's mine now.
well, the other thing is there is something they haven't told us yet about trade companies, or not trade companies, colonial nations. Something is changing with how colonial nations work that we don't know about yet. So, will we be able to do this in colonial nations? Might be a more complicated answer than just yes or no.
There's a very interesting comment there from Johan in chat. Pops in Imperator was an EU4 expansion rework of Pops I wrote. Johan, I
remember that.
dearly, dearly wish you had followed through with that, or will follow through with that at some point, because Pops would improve my enjoyment of EU4 like 1,000%.
Yeah, I just love pops.
Pops are way better.
Pops are
Just
everything.
better. Yeah, they're just better.
Pops and Hearts of Iron. Put pops everywhere.
Just pops, yeah. Pops and March of the Eagles. Add pops to Bloodlines 2 if it ever comes out. Yeah. So
Well, one thing that people often comment about, like, trying to make tall viable or wide viable and stuff, but I think one thing that like people ignore, which I think is quite an important gameplay element, is pretty borders. And this gameplay, like this new mechanic, once you've achieved your natural borders of France and the Rhine, right, you don't really want to expand anymore, really.
Sure.
Because the borders will get ugly. So now it gives you a new mechanic of making your nation a lot more beefier without creating border gore,
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Or, like if you're playing as like the Dutch and like suddenly you border, the HRE and France, like you don't really have anywhere to go at that point. So you do what the Dutch did historically, and you go out to the rest of the world and bring their riches back to you.
Exactly, yeah.
So
I mean, isn't that what most of Europe
make...
tried to do?
I wouldn't say most.
A good
make
chunk.
windmills out of the Elgin marbles.
The successful ones. The ones we remember.
I mean, and like I love like picking a country like Portugal and just keeping their starting borders and just developing Portugal to be like the new center of commerce and learning in Europe. Like that's what I was supposed to do. So,
like forming historical borders is like kind of the joy that you still have with EU4. It's like, oh, if I'm playing as an Italian state, I'm gonna get the Italian borders. If I'm playing as France, I'm gonna get the historic French borders, and a bit of Holland as well, because why not? If I'm playing as England, I'm gonna get the historic, British borders, including all of France, because naturally we deserve it. But it's just
Calais all game.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just getting historic borders is something that I do quite often. Like, I don't like just blobbing for blobbing's sake. It just gets tiring after a while.
Yep,
so having this way of improving your nation without just blobbing and without clicking a dev button.
At some point, when you blob, the game stops becoming fun, and that's why no one ever plays the end date.
Yeah. There is a certain point. It takes it can take a long time to get to in EU4, but at the point that I feel that I'm not challenged by any of the other nations on the map, that's generally when I kind of get bored with it.
Yep. Yeah, CK3 has exactly the same problem. Mm-hmm. I got the achievement for reaching 1453 yesterday. The final 100 years were
apparently
not
Twitch
fun.
does not like you being an EU4 junkie.
What's going
on? We have Poetry Stud Gaming here said they're an EU4 junkie, and Twitch stopped that. I had to allow it to be said.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. See, Rosebud has some sort of a chalice.
Oh, it's the CK3
it's a
chalice.
CK3 goblet, yeah.
Oh, it is, yeah.
That PDX sent me at Christmas time. He likes it more. I like it, but he's kind of addicted to it.
See, a young monarch in the making, yeah.
It's royal milk.
There's another way that you could make a monarchy though, other than the CK3 way, which is by subverting democracy in Stellaris.
Nice transition.
I love democracy.
There.
This is probably my favorite Stellaris dev diary in, I don't know, years maybe.
When you are going that hard at pointing at a very vocal, very prolific set of fans in the prequel memer community, because it is a community, let's be fair, and you say, look at all these references that we are giving to you. You're onto a winner.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who have never heard of Stellaris, who are prequel memers, who will be like, oh, I'm playing this now. Yeah, no, I am the same.
It's called Stellaris Justice, but the expansion should have been called Stellaris Palpatine. Because that's basically what you can do now. You can turn the galactic community into the Galactic Imperium.
Yeah.
And I mean, the art is really on the nose.
It really is. I love how... I don't know if I want to call it shameless, but I love how massively.
The art is one thing.
It's wonderful.
Right above the first Galactic Imperium, we have a quote from High Chancellor Nelapatep, which is literally an anagram of Palpatine.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can become the Galactic Emperor, the Galactic Sovereign. You get all kinds of bonuses, and you start out as the Custodian, which we talked about last week, and then basically you just give yourself more and more emergency powers until you dispense with any pretenses of democracy, and.
You basically use someone becoming the End Crisis to become the End Crisis yourself.
Yeah, to become the End Crisis 2. Yeah, no, I love this. I especially love that there's even a rebellion mechanic.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm actually more excited to play the rebellion than I am to play the Galactic Sovereign, and so I hope
Well, then you are lost.
that the AI can actually pull this off, or that there's some sort of like I almost want to like custom make an AI empire and force them to spawn that will try to do this, because that's the thing is like people are going to want to play the rebels, and you aren't going to get to play the rebels if the AI isn't capable of becoming the Galactic Sovereign. So
you'll have to vote them in just so you can rebel against.
yeah, it's like
Why
okay,
why would you want to play as the rebels though when you can wipe them out, all of them?
Because X-wings are cool. That's the thing
there
about
are two
rebels.
types of players here.
my loyalty is to the Republic, to democracy.
Democracy.
Yep. A galaxy on fire with Nemesis willing to focus on the things that can go wrong. I feel like both Leanna and Lambert here are going wrong, but it's your decision on which way.
No, my young Rose. You will find that it is you who are mistaken about a great many things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do both, but like, yeah, I do really hope that there's a way to maybe nudge the AI toward doing this if you want to play as the rebels.
Well, Lambert, we have Alfred pointing out in chat that you can rebel so you can form a better Imperium.
Oh no!
Yeah.
But no, because that's because that's like
or we just
what's the new one? The first order.
None of that happened. The canonical sequel. The canonical sequel to the Star Wars trilogy is The Mandalorian, and nothing happened after that. It's really weird.
Hard agree.
Yeah, or as someone in chat pointed out, we could just play multiplayer, and Lambert can be the Emperor, and we can all rebel
Lambert's gonna
against
go,
him. Yeah.
and we know which way Leanna's gonna go.
Unlimited power. Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, this is going to be really fun. I like this a lot. This is the sort of update where it's like not reinventing the wheel with Stellaris, but it's kind of leaning into things that it already does really well. So I think it's going to be a good update. Yeah, well, our main topic for today, because we do have our AO here, is going to be the Imperator 2.0 Marius update, which we shared some impressions on last week. I'm curious, Rose and Loris, have you had any chance to spend more time with this yet?
No.
Yeah. I had a fair bit. Not as much as I would have liked, but I played it a fair bit.
I did load it up and look around, and I did a time lapse and kind of looked at it, but that was it.
So, Arheo, how long has this been in the works for? All these changes.
So it varies really. We've had quite a few things in the window, as you're probably aware, and we usually create these things fairly sequentially. So the development on the majority of it started, of course, after the big 1.5 rework that added the culture system into the game. But I'd say that certainly the UI reworks have been something that's been in the back of my mind for a long time. So that's been going on under a cloak of secrecy for a little bit longer than that.
And
it does seem like the culture rework. There was quite a few people thinking, "But what does this really do? It doesn't really do anything." And I think now, if they look back, they'll be like, "Oh, so this is why it's there. This is the big crux of what it's there for."
Absolutely. I think certainly you can sort of chart the course of 1.4 to 1.5 and then finally to the Marius update, where everything just finally gets tied together and makes a whole lot more sense, I hope.
Yeah, I found the culture system kind of confusing in 1.5, but like now I'm actually kind of understanding what I should be doing with it. In terms of like, I conquered a large area that's not of my culture group. So, okay, I'm going to pick the biggest of these non-culture group cultures, and you guys get to be special. I'm going to give you a lot of rights so you'll assimilate faster, and then we'll move on to the next biggest one, and then we'll move on to the next biggest one. because if we give everybody rights all at once, then everybody will be mad. Yeah. So obviously, the big focus of Marius, the big stated focus was that it was mostly about warfare. And I think Imperator actually is probably, kind of up there with Hearts of Iron as being one of the best PDS war games, just because, the terrain granularity and all that. It just makes it more interesting to fight a war. The supply system is really interesting. You've got engineers in there now. So in terms of just switching over from before where it was more of an EU4 style to now it's like almost kind of a hybrid where you have levies and legions. What made you decide to go that particular route with this rework?
Well, I think a lot of this ties into the type of game that Imperator is. I've always said it's a bit of a civilization builder. And I think certainly the culture mechanic was something that was necessary to make it, to add a lot more diversity to the nations that you're playing. And I think the levies system particularly, discounting legions for the moment, the levies system was the logical next step to sort of bring cultures and the differences in the people that make up your empire into the goal, which is often to conquer. So it's adding an economical element to warfare.
And then how did you actually go about deciding what those ratios were going to be for how do you decide how much percentage of heavy infantry Gauls are going to have or something like that?
Well, I'd say it's probably an equal parts guesstimation and historical research. There's a lot of research gone into the type of units that various cultures would have used, and then refining what those would have been equipped with and worked with into something that fit with a categorization like light infantry that is supposed to represent your skirmishers or your light foot troops. So there is a degree of general categorization, but again, once you get to the cultures sort of further to the east and you start getting your nobles and citizens providing the heavier units and elephants even in some cases.
Yeah, I found it very interesting to pan around the map and just kind of see where that gradient stuff. There's almost like an elephant gradient where people start using elephants, and there's a horse archer gradient as you get out to the steppes more. Mm-hmm. We did have a couple of questions from chat, which, by the way, guys, now would be the time to post those if you have them. Tiny's Time says, how do you feel about the old UI?
I don't miss it.
maybe another a more interesting way to phrase that is what were the specific issues you found with the old UI that you really wanted to fix in 2.0?
I think the majority of it wasn't so much the visual style, but the information display. I think it was very busy, and it had a sort of this juxtaposition of very alive and colourful icons on what was essentially a very drab colour in the background. The marble theme was something I quite enjoyed, actually, as I think a lot of the players did. But ultimately, it didn't quite feel right. The ancient world was, of course, vibrant and colourful, and painting marble white is very much a Hollywood trope these days, if one that people expect. But I wanted to bring a bit of color back to the game that you were playing.
And I think red is fitting, considering this is Imperator Rome, and red is usually associated with Rome.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly the light theme of the UI was something that I was dead set on when we chose to do the rework, because I think it was part of the identity of Imperator, really. Crusader Kings, of course, has its dark theme, and I think that suits it very well. The mood is more somber, perhaps, at times, whereas with Imperator, we'd already had this bright aesthetic, and the map itself was very bright and inviting, and I wanted to bring that out with the UI.
Yeah, no,
One part of it that's been a little bit more controversial with the new UI, is the choice of teal. That one has been equal parts liked and disliked from what I've seen.
I like it just because it's an interesting color contrast on the color wheel, teal and red, teal, white.
Yeah.
It's an interesting mix.
It's an interesting one. I think it was very difficult to come to find and agree on a color that worked very well with both a very bright white and a red. So it took a surprising amount of time to focus on that. But I think the most interesting thing about it is that a lot of people made their feelings known about this at an early stage when reading dev diaries. And then we had a huge number of comments post-release saying, oh, actually, this works in practice. This isn't so bad. This makes sense.
Yeah.
I actually like the teal. I think it's fitting, and I don't know why, but it feels kind of Greek to me, adding that color in.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of the Mediterranean, which fits pretty well with the time period for sure. We have an
if you don't like it as well, there is a mod already that you can use, and that apparently doesn't break achievement compatibility, so you can just use bronze as well if you want.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, one of the big advantages I think of the new UI is it's incredibly simple to reskin all the buttons in the game just by changing, for example, one file, so you can change the colors to your heart's content.
Oh, nice. We do have another question. Thoughts on having pop type interact with levy composition other than slave, non-slave? I assume what he means is something like maybe citizens would give you more heavy infantry or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the case now. Pop types themselves contribute different amounts of different types of levy. So the more citizens you have, the more of the sort of intermediate tier levies you'll get. I think.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It's maybe not well shown enough. Like, it is something that you have to use the tooltips within tooltips to find, but it is certainly there. You can't have heavy infantry unless you have citizens and nobles as an Etruscan person.
And
certainly the display of this is something that we're going to be spending a little bit of time on in the coming week.
So about the tooltips and tooltips, that wasn't there originally, was it?
It was not.
What made y'all decide to go and add it in? Or was it just not ready before? Or
because it was an excellent idea, really, and something that Crusader Kings was championing. It wasn't something that we had available to us when we were building the game originally, and to have it become available. There were a lot of discussions about whether we should add this and so forth. But then when we were doing the UI rework at the same time, it seemed like a logical opportunity to take this incredibly useful and effective way of displaying detail information and simply put it in. It took a fair amount of work, but I'm very glad we did that.
It is quite nice. I do like it a lot.
TM Teddy's also asking, do you see the new UI as complete for existing features or deserving of significant polish? Like, are you going to do anything more with the tooltips in the future?
I don't know exactly. I think certainly for the UI in general, an overhaul on the scale that we've done is very difficult to get 100% right on the first occasion. So certainly there will be some polish. I think you've already seen some things returned that were perhaps missing, for example, in the 2.01 patch. So it's an iterative process, but I think it's fair to assume that work will continue in that regard.
We have a lot of questions about tooltips and UI, like very specific tooltip and UI questions. Let's say, like adding a go-to functionality or loyalty, having a special tooltip for loyalty modifiers like duration.
Yeah, these are all great ideas, and we tried to be as comprehensive as we could. Of course, there's only so many days in the working week, so to convert an entire game from a system that didn't use nested tooltips to suddenly using it meant that we had to sort of prioritize things that we considered absolutely most important first of all.
Do you have a
something that I do
favorite?
find using a lot. I like it. I like that it's been added, for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite feature from 2.0 that like hasn't been talked about as much? That is just something that you really enjoyed working on, or you think is like a sleeper hit maybe for this patch?
I think everything has been recognized to a degree that I'm very happy with. But I think my favorite feature in the 2.0 release, and I think the one that sort of hits the nail on the head as regards my civilization builder direction, is the invention system, probably.
Oh yeah, yeah. I really like the new. I really like the new invention system. It even seems like there are even some that are cultural specific. Is that right? Like,
yeah, there are quite a few culturally specific branches that only open up to integrated cultures of a certain type.
I thought so, yeah, because I was seeing different ones. Yeah, when I was playing in Gaul than when I was playing in Germania. So,
well, that only makes
one
sense.
very interesting one that we had that needed a little bit of a nerf was Noric steel. Used to be very, very handy indeed. If as I was playing as Rome, and I took some land, and I guess I took some people of Noric culture, and then I got plus 50% to my heavy infantry offense, which made me
my god,
kind of invincible.
It may have been a small typo.
It was one that was appreciated.
uh,
I mean, everybody needs a fighting chance against Rome, I think.
But then when Rome takes your stuff, and it doesn't really work.
so we got True Master asking when will we be seeing some reworks of the mission system, especially the economy missions? Try to get the player to do things that are counterproductive or are not suitable at that stage in the game. For example, build 3 cities as a minor state at the start of the game.
So the missions aren't necessarily intended to be something that you complete instantly. Things that will stay with you over the course of a campaign. So I don't necessarily see too much of an issue of having an objective that you can't complete yet, but something that you may have to work towards. The mission system as it stands is something I'm pretty happy with. I think it's that sweet spot between the static EU4 mission tree style and the larger focus trees of something like HOI4.
It's apparently
and of course they're very dynamic.
Right.
Have you? Oh, go ahead, Rose.
Oh no, we have TM saying this is about generic or procedurally generated missions, not the ones given, but specifically for certain nations.
Yeah, I know one thing that I would like to see, possibly, for certain countries is maybe the ability to suspend a mission tree. Because what I have seen happen a lot is I'll start out as a tribal kingdom, and I'll start like I don't know, the matter of like Gallia or whatever that first mission to conquer your home region is. And then I'll get up to the point that I can investigate tribal reform, and I have to abandon all the progress I've made in that like matter of Celtica mission or whatever, in order to be able to reform my government. And I would like to be able to just like, okay, we're going to put that on the back burner. We're going to reform our government, and then we're going to get back to conquering Celtica. That's something I would personally like to see.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Something to consider.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially because like the one mission you have available at the start of the game as a tribal kingdom will sort of lock you out of being able to reform your government unless you abandon it. Yeah.
Rosebud agrees with you
I
there,
will
Leanna.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
On that note, I will say that responding to feedback is something that I think Imperator's dev team does remarkably well, especially to my ramblings through Discord DMs. There's been certain things added to the game which I've directly asked for, and I'm very happy to see them.
Lambert practically needs like a consulting credit on Imperator at this point.
These two things, I take credit. I love it. It's so nice. Although I shouldn't take credit because I basically get the idea from Agamade and his mod, although I might have asked for it from him, so I can't remember. I'm going to take credit.
As you should. And I think at this point you've probably played more Imperator than I have, which is saying fair. So.
We can just 1,700 hours.
Wow.
Oh, I'm still in the lead.
Damn it.
You got to work harder than Lambert.
He definitely works harder than me, that's for sure.
So another thing I'm really curious about is how do you go about the process of writing like the ahistorical missions or mission branches for the established kingdoms? Like where do those ideas generally come from, and how do you develop them?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it's been a while since I personally wrote a mission tree, but certainly I wrote my fair share of EU4 missions. I think it's what makes sense for the region. The ahistorical branches themselves are things that could have happened, and I like to think that certainly with the new the Diadochi mission branches that were added in Alexander, it could have gone any way. I think it was the Diadochi. The fact that it turned out as it did was very much partially down to chance. So you can imagine a situation in which the Antigonid kingdom survived in Asia. So having that as a potential branch doesn't require a whole lot of imagination.
We did
I've played through the start of the Antigonids a couple of times, and that beginning war is very tough.
As it should be, I think.
Yes, for sure. It is winnable, though. I will say it is winnable.
It is, and having played through this a number of times now, I think the most fun I have with the Antigonid kingdom is by intentionally losing and retreating to Greece and really making that comeback story, because it's a very fun player narrative.
The narrative of my current campaign that I'm doing on Twitch, Antagonids retreating to Greece, though I did have to restart because Thrace kind of got beaten up by Adrissia, and when they also declared on me, some Athenians just crossed over into Lysimachia and managed to completely annex them for me without me doing anything with them. So when I retreated to Greece, I also had much of Anatolia. So I restarted to lose harder. But
Sorry,
yeah,
I was just laughing
because a lot of fun.
I think Rosebud was causing so much chaos that Rose had to mute her mic. That's what I was laughing about. But
oh yeah, he also decided he was hungry. So
yeah. So we have a question. Have you considered tweaking Civil Wars, the Diadochi CB, and Imperial Conquest CB to generate less border gore? I don't think I've seen as much border gore in this patch personally, actually, other than the Antigonid explosion at the beginning, which always makes me happy because I like playing as like Athens and Judea, and I like being out from under the heel of the Antigonid boot sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's a hard balance to strike, I think. It's something I'm actually quite happy with the CB itself. I don't particularly see any chance of us turning it into the same sort of conquest rules as regular conquests where you acquire the whole province. It can result in border gore, but I think if it does, that's often down to you. If you choose to conquer in a way that is aesthetically displeasing, then it's up to you to solve that situation. The AI will try not to do that, but they don't always succeed.
Got it. So we have another question. I haven't played enough to know all the ins and outs of balance changes, but it definitely seems to me after revisiting the game that more blobs start to form. The AI seems more aggressive. At least that's been my experience. Was that intentional? If so, what are the biggest changes to the AI that have led to that? I'll add on that, I think you guys introduced antagonists in 1.5, was it?
We did, yes.
But I'm just now seeing them start to form these big blobs. So I'm really curious what specifically changed between 1.5 and 2.0.
So I think the military changes have had a huge effect on the AI empires. It's a lot easier to to assess strength, sort of the strength of the own AI nation and so forth, so that they're a lot better at working out if they should declare war. In addition to that, I think certainly the aggressiveness of antagonist nations like Rome has been upped a lot. So you'll probably notice that Rome tends to do a lot better than it used to. It often expand a lot further. We tweaked a whole number of things, to be honest, but particularly one thing that people weren't keen on seeing, and I definitely agree with, was Rome often expanding into land that it had no real business expanding into, often into Germany and very cheap tribal land, because the AI thought it made sense because it was significantly stronger than those countries. But we put a lot more weight on expanding in directions that made sense by whether it had claims and whether those territories were included in missions and so forth. So it tends to build towards historical borders. And the Diadochi themselves will often fight each other to the point where there's a clear winner, which I think is something very valuable.
Mm-hmm. I know it's the same with Carthage too. In my games, a lot of screenshots I saw, Carthage seems to expand mostly into Iberia, right?
Yeah, that's right. We should actually be seeing a lot more Roman Carthaginian wars happening as well, which is another nice part of the AI tweak.
Yeah, both of the longer campaigns I played ended up with kind of like a Roman Carthaginian standoff, like the Pyrenees. Like neither of them ever actually won the Punic War, so the Mediterranean was like split up north-south more or less. I've also seen much more activity with like the Seleucids just like getting overrun by Parthian hordes, which is fun.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot as well.
Yeah, I've seen the Persian Empire form a couple of times, which is cool. Let me see. We have another question, which is, have you discussed making the DLC missions more open-ended? The trees that you pick late are very hit and miss. I'm assuming in terms of like deals, like if you didn't pick them up earlier, then the objectives are not relevant anymore, or something like that is what they're talking about.
That can be hard to do. I mean, I think accounting for the myriad ways in which the world can develop in those missions can be difficult. That said, I'm sure there's still tweaking to be done. We're still working on post-release support right now. So if you have any specific examples in mind, then by all means head to the forums and let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
We also had the question, Imperator's DLC model has been extremely generous since release, with practically everything being free and only cosmetics and other minor stuff costing money. Is this model likely to change going forward given the success of 2.0 and the current state of the game?
Not something I can answer, really.
Fair enough.
I will say, when I interviewed Johan back at PDXCon, he was very happy with the DLC model, and of course, at the time, he was head honcho of Imperator. He was fairly pleased with it. I think definitely for me, I like this model more than I like the model of E4 or CK2.
Oh yeah,
there's enough in the DLC to be a case of I really want this. Especially the new music in the current DLC is just phenomenal.
The new music is fantastic. Yeah, I love the new war music. Yeah,
and the Legion honors are. I personally can't play without them because I love them so much. But it's also like you can play without them. So there's enough in the DLCs to be like, I really want this, but the game isn't unplayable without them, which I think is very important.
But that just seems to be the direction PDS is moving kind of more generally. Yeah, so
it's a good direction.
Zondros is asking, is there any part of the game you wanted to rework or update in this patch but were unable to?
I'm sure there were. There are things that I want to do for sure. As for the 2.0 update, it has, I think, everything that I intended to cover in it, and more actually. There's plenty of things that weren't initially part of the design that ended up going in. So it's rather the opposite. You got more than intended.
And this is actually something I was wondering about. Is it possible to tweak our primary culture levy composition? If you do crazy stuff like I do, where you go conquer Dacia as a Germanic tribe, that maybe our levies would become a little bit more Dacian looking over time.
So I think that's still down to the cultures that you've integrated. I think if you are a Germanic tribe and you decide to conquer Dacia, then you want to integrate the Dacians, and then your culture, your levies will be influenced by that culture. The idea of changing a levy culture for your own culture isn't something that I think I particularly want to do.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I do have to ask, as the token barbarian in the room, we've seen a lot of focus on Rome, on Carthage, and on the Hellenic world so far. Can you say anything about when barbarians might be getting a little bit of love?
I wish I could say. Sadly, I cannot, as you might expect.
All right.
We do have another question in chat from ML saying, are we going to get another roadmap?
Well, right now we're focusing fairly strongly on supporting the release and cleaning up issues that were found in the wild. And after that, who knows? We'll see.
I would love to see the no roadmap. That would be nice.
Because I know you're not on the CK3 team, but that was actually one thing that a lot of people commented about the dev diary last week for CK3, is that they wish that they did roadmaps like Imperator did.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Total War has been doing that a lot recently too, and I really like when they put those out for sure.
Because it's something that can generate hype and generate like hope as well. Because I know I personally find it a bit unfounded at this point, but there is still a subset of people that some reason believe that Paradox will stop supporting Imperator. A roadmap would be like, yeah, but like they've got a roadmap here. Clearly, they're not doing that. It would just be nice.
So here's a question I get on Twitter a lot, and I'm curious to hear your answer for it, because like I have my answer, has an answer to this, but I have a lot of people that say, I haven't played Imperator since release, or like since 1.2 or something like that. I want to come back, check out the new update. What country should I be playing as?
Difficult question.
It is. Yeah.
I know the country that I always play as is Sparta, because I think it's the perfect size for the Imperator experience. But I guess after the Heirs of Alexander DLC, yes, Antigonid Kingdom, if you're willing to take a loss and retreat into Greece, usually becomes the perfect size. I think there's just enough to manage to give you a good early game experience, and you feel the full force of every decision you make as far as levies and cultures are concerned. So, I think it's one of those games where you can have just as much fun playing tall, or I don't really know what the in-between tall and wide is, but it's that. You don't have
Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
The Goldilocks zone. Yeah, we'll call it.
I suggested Epirus for like basically the same reason. I think they're like the right size, that they don't feel overwhelming, but they also don't get eaten immediately. And they're connected to the Hellenic world, but they could kind of make their own destiny. They don't have like a
connected to the Hellenic world is understating it a little bit, with Pyrrhus being the second cousin of Alexander. just a little bit of understatement there.
They do get some love with the new events and stuff too, which is really fun. Yeah.
Is Crete still Newbie Island?
I'd say so.
Yeah, it kind of is.
I would disagree now.
I did a Uniting Crete game, and it can be rough. Those like first few wars to unite the island can be rough. It's not quite like rolling over Ireland in CK3 is.
Yeah, I think it would be, but with the new aggression in 2.0, Egypt really likes that island. Like, it really likes that island. It makes a lot of sense for it to like that island.
See, Egypt never came after me, but I was also sending diplomats to Egypt constantly, so...
I constantly had to... I built up an army, and anytime that they landed, I was like, okay, you can't land another army. This one has to die now. It is thrilling to play in Crete. It is a lot of fun, but I don't think it's for newbies.
I think if you haven't united Crete by the time the Dialectic Wars have ended, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Well, that's another thing is, like, if you are bordering Egypt or the Seleucids, you're in a lot more than you used to be, because they used to be fighting the gigantic Antigonid blob for like the first 100 years, but now there generally isn't a giant Antigonid blob for them to focus on after 100 years. So, yeah, they're a little bit more expansionist. It seems like, unless the Seleucids get overrun by Parthians, and then then you're in good shape. But yeah.
What is your favorite campaign that you've played in 2.0?
Favorite campaign? Syracuse, actually. It's gone from being one of the interesting, moderately difficult starts to being shit scary.
I think we're about to see why it's shit scary.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
They are stuck in the middle of two titanic powers, Rome being the aggressive, regionally dominant power, and with their new aggressiveness, the sheer amount of pops and the economy that they have to support them, they tend to do very well, and you will get war decked within the first 50 years, guaranteed. And then, of course, Carthage tends to build itself up an absolutely massive tribal base in Iberia, so they've usually got money to throw around. They will hire a lot of mercs. So that is one of my favorite campaigns, mostly because I just like role playing and building the merc cities and so forth that were introduced in Magna Graecia.
You like throwing a coin to your tyrant, huh? Like
Absolutely.
Yeah, I still want to try and do the Italia unification thing at some point. Maybe it's like, is it Messapia that starts at the very heel of the boot?
The Messapians are here, yes.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking about maybe starting my next campaign as.
Yeah, Syracuse actually, when the game first came out, wasn't too difficult because Carthage would delete their boats.
Yeah.
And
yeah, sadly Carthage had that problem. They don't anymore. They've got a very big navy now, I think.
Yeah, because they were, since I played them in that big multiplayer event, I then played them on stream. And I think the first war with Carthage, they had no boats to send troops, and their vassal swarm kept landing in piecemeal little bits that I just murderized. And so I took all of Sicily and Crete, not Crete, Sardinia from them in one war. It was very painful, but it was beautiful.
Yeah. Syracuse is definitely an interesting start as well, because there's no iron in Sicily. So going up against Rome without iron, it can get a bit rough.
Yep, I think I took Crete before I fought Rome.
Yeah. So here's sort of the big question, which is that, I don't think it's any secret to anybody here that, Imperator released an estate that was kind of unsatisfactory to a lot of the fans, and I think even to a lot of the developers. It's reinvented itself multiple times at this point. 2.0, the fact that it's called 2.0 is a pretty big indicator that this is a big change for the game. Do you feel like at this point Imperator is in a state where it's not going to need any more big tectonic changes to the basic gameplay to get it working, and we could just move forward with more like the usual Paradox sort of expansions and patches? Or do you think there's still work to be done on like that engine, on the inner workings that you would like to do in the future?
I think my ideal scenario is much as you described. I think 2.0 has reached a point where the underpinnings of the game are sound. It's entirely possible, as I think the fans largely agree by the response that we've seen, to have an interesting and fun game in most of the corners of the map, even those that maybe don't have the scripted content. And I think that's the important thing. There are probably still things that could be improved for sure. But overhauls and reworks on the scale of 2.0, I don't think would have a place.
All right. ML Kazulo's asked a couple of times, would you consider a gray unit widget for neutral armies? I know it is kind of hard to tell neutral and hostile apart with the colors that they are right now.
This is on the top of my whiteboard right now.
Okay,
I will say I do have a mod. Oh, I don't have it enabled right now. There is a mod that changes this to gray, which is one that I do use pretty often.
Yeah.
I would recommend it because, yeah, that's a little too close to, well, a real army up there.
Yeah, a couple times I panicked because I thought there were like 8,000 enemy troops in my territory. I was like, oh no, those are just unraised mercenaries.
It's good to know it's on high up on the list.
Yeah. And then we have one more question from Zandros. Would you like to add more famous bloodline traits to the game? And if so, do you have any regions in mind that would personally interest you?
I think it would be always cool to add more of those. I think if I was to choose one initially, it would probably be the Maurya dynasties in India. Beyond that, I'm sure there's plenty of candidates that would benefit from those. So
I'm a Gold fan, so yeah, I'd love to see like the blood of Ambikatus for the Baturges, or the blood of Brennus for the Insubres. That would be cool.
I think a pretty clear contender as well would be the blood of the Achaemenids for Heraclea Pontica.
Yeah.
And also, I know it's not going to be something you can answer because it's like will we get this? I can't say. But can we please make the bloodlines be passed down both matrilineally and patrilineally? Because I really like Pokemon and I want to collect them all. I really want them. I really want them all, and I can't get them, and it makes me sad.
I'll do something like giving you a 1% chance to pass it down.
Honestly, that would not be enough, but I would want something along those lines if possible.
Yeah, you can form the Achaemenid Empire now, can't you? Like, if you have the right.
You can. Yes.
Yeah.
Heraclea Pontica into Persia it was one of my most fun campaigns that I've had.
Nice.
And so difficult. Because the Seleucids were so big.
They are big. They are big, and they have lots of money. Man, Mesopotamia is just such an economic powerhouse region. Yeah. Well, let's see. So, will we get more military or distinctions in the future, like splitting archers into archers and slingers? I'd like Falksman as someone who's playing in Dacia right now.
I think I would love to see Pikeman as an individual from heavy infantry. Would be one that I'd like.
Is that anything?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out, but balance-wise, I'm fairly happy with what we have now. I think the only reason to add things, to add additional unit types, would be primarily for flavor.
Yeah.
Regional flavor would be very nice. Like, obviously the tribes are able to build chariots, but having Rome can have a unit called heavy infantry, sure, but also one called Praetorians, and only Rome can get that. Or only Diadochi can have a unit called the Silver Shield. I'd love that. That'd be great. That would be great. That's kind of the argument a lot of people have, like, Imperator needs more flavor. That would be it. That's the flavor. I love that idea.
I'd support that, yeah. Let's see. Would Arheo be able to comment on the migration mechanics? Right now, you really want to have your cities on the coast and make ports there, but if I had a well-connected capital with many roads, surely this city should be a target for more settlements or cities in the empire. That might be two separate comments.
I'm not entirely sure what the question is there.
I'm not either. Paulus, if you want to maybe try to.
I think it's meaning the migration, not as in like tribal migration, but as in migration attraction.
Oh, okay. So people are. I think maybe they're saying that the pops are too inclined to migrate to coastal port cities and not enough to like important inland cities.
So this can happen. I thought I'd done something about that in the 2.0 patch. But
They're asking
still
that
happens. We'll have a look.
can migration of pops just migrate along roads, or maybe have a preference to migrate along roads?
I think they already do, don't they? Like outgoing road connections increase migration attraction now.
Road networking territory plus 20% for Rome here.
Yeah, there's a flat bonus depending on the amount of road connections in the province, but I mean, for technical reasons, pops migrating along roads right now is a big no.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well. Let's see. We had one more that was. Can we have more cultural decisions with more dynamic outcomes? I'm also not 100% sure what that mean. I guess the culture decisions meaning like granting rights and things like that.
These ones, more dynamic ones, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming that's what they mean by cultural decision. Yeah, I haven't messed.
It could be done, I'm sure.
Yeah.
More unique decisions, perhaps. Maybe the Romans are doing something different with their cultural integration of people than Thrace is, for example, perhaps.
Oh, there's a good one. Is the subject rework that was teased a long time ago but didn't make it into 2.0 works?
That's still on the back burner. It was a shame that we had to cut it from 1.5 or 1.4, I forget which it was. But again, I haven't really found the right point to reintroduce that or to keep developing it. There were a number of things that I wasn't quite happy with there.
And yeah, Xandros, I do believe governors have less influence for being away from the capital, if I'm not completely mistaken. I think that is a thing now. Yeah, because I know there's some instances where I've made somebody a governor, so they will stop bothering me. It seemed to work pretty well. Yeah. Well, we don't want to keep you here forever, so I think we will probably wrap up there. But yeah, before we get out of here, just in terms of 2.0 in general, what would you say to people who are maybe still skeptical about Imperator or played it at launch, didn't really like it? You know, what's your sort of elevator pitch for getting people back on board?
I think the authors of a lot of the reviews we've had at the last week or so can say it a lot better than I can. We've been hearing a whole lot about how this is where it should be now. This is what people wanted at launch. They're happy to play it. A lot of comments saying that sort of thing and more. I think, as I say, they can say it far better than I ever can. It's the right time to try Imperator, I believe. So if you were ever going to, now is the time.
And then for a lot of these, and again, I'm not throwing shade at chat at all. A lot of these questions that are actually more of suggestions, where can people go to post those to make sure that the developers...
So we do have a suggestions subforum on our forums. So by all means, as I say to everyone with suggestions, if you put a suggestion on the forums, it will be read by a developer, usually me. You're never posting in vain. So please do. We've had brilliant ideas. We've had bad ideas. We've had mediocre ideas. But then that's what ideas are like.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to post.
Apart from my ideas, which are all great.
Apart from Father Marius.
And clearly mine are just exquisite.
Lawrence has never had a bad idea ever, yeah. Nor has Lambert, yeah. Well, one I think momentous occasion for the show is that Loris, I believe you do have something to announce this week.
Oh yeah, I made the comic finally. Yeah.
Was it a comic about building stairs?
No, it's not about stairs, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can people go to?
You can go to shufflecomic.com or my Twitter, one of the two, or Reddit. yeah, and have a look at a comic for the first time in not too long.
Fantastic. Rose, what have you been up to lately, other than trying to wrangle the rosebud?
Yeah, who's taking control of my computer mouse? I did live stream a little bit yesterday. Or was it Monday? I don't know. It was sometime.
Wait, what? Oh, okay.
But
I
then,
couldn't tell if that was you or if that was Rosebud agreeing to something.
but you can find me on YouTube, where I had a video about me totally failing to get an achievement in CK3 last week, as well as a video yesterday talking about the recent Dev Diary, because there will be Dev Diary videos every week.
Welcome to the Raiders from Aldris channel, by the way. We're about to wrap up, but thanks for coming. Yeah.
And if you like our podcast, and you're here on Twitch, hit that little follow button. You'll hear when we go live every week.
Absolutely.
And if you're watching on another platform, hit that little follow or subscribe or add to playlist or whatever it's called there.
Just whatever buttons. Just press whatever buttons you see. If you see one that says,
all the buttons, like Rosebud is doing on my computer mouse right now.
If you see a pop-up that says like 395 viruses detected, click here to clean it up. Don't click that button.
Yeah, no, that one.
That's probably not real.
And don't click shady buttons in your email either.
No. Yeah. What have you been up to, and where can people find your stuff?
I've been playing a bit of Imperator. It's a little game you might have heard of.
Just a bit.
It's just had an update. And I recommend it. It's not bad. It scratches the itch that I've been really having for a while. No, I'm absolutely loving the new update. I'm going to be playing it a hell of a lot. I'll be streaming some more of it tomorrow over on Twitch. And honestly, I don't know if there's anything else that I've got going on right now, because last night I just finished my EU4 and CK3 campaigns, and then went to bed at 3 a.m. But yeah, those are done. So I've just got Imperator in my near future. So if you're wanting to watch somebody who has had an idea so good it was implemented into the game, go and follow me on Twitch.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm Lord Sworn Order on Twitch, and I'm also playing Imperator right now. I united Swabi tribes in Germany, and we migrated down into Dacia, and we're going to conquer Greece. Because, Alexander said to the strongest. He did not say to the strongest of my war buddies. So if we're the strongest, it shouldn't really matter where we came from, or that we despoiled the entire Balkans on our way to get there.
True.
So yeah, Sunday is as specific of a schedule as I have right now. It's Sunday. We're going to stream. We're doing Imperator. We're going to be doing some AC Valhalla. Eventually some CK3. Semi on the fence if I want to wait for the next patch for that, but we don't know how far away that is, so I probably won't wait for the next patch. And yeah, you can follow the show on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever there are podcasts available. You will probably find us there.
You can follow Arheo on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
He posts quite frequently little teasers and stuff that's going to come into the next Dev Diary or the next patch, and they're all very interesting.
Take me above 3 digits.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on the show and giving some insight into 2.0, and be happy to have you back on again.
That's right. Arheo is currently at 988 followers on Twitter.
Oh,
let's get him to 1,000.
We can fix that.
I know you can do it.
Goal.
Yeah, go for
1,000 is a very nice number.
And we're going to go raid Selvig, who is streaming some EU4, I believe. So
sounds great.
Yeah, and, thanks all for watching.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.